Crash landing. The sky above the desert was burning red. 2 spaceships fell from the clouds, broken and on fire. They crashed into the sand with a loud explosion. One belonged to the humans, the other to their enemies, the Zurians, smoke-filled. The air dot from the wreck of the human ship, a figure crawled out. It was a woman, a soldier. Her name was Mira. Her face was covered in dirt and blood. Her arm was bleeding. Her uniform was torn. But she was alive. She looked around. Nothing but red sand and sharp rocks. No trees, no water. No sound except the wind. She limped forward, holding her side. Her head was spinning. But then she saw movement. Not far from her, another figure was dragging itself out of the other ship. A Zurien. Tall, armored skin, gray eyes, 4-fingered hands. His body was covered in cuts and burns. His leg was badly injured. He could not walk. Mira stopped. Her hand went to her belt. No gun, just a small knife. The Zurian looked at her, breathing heavily. His name was Kale, a warrior from the Zurian Empire. For years his people had fought. Humans. He had killed many in battle. Now he lay broken, helpless. Staring at the human, they locked eyes. Enemies. Kale reached for a sharp, metal piece near him. A weapon. Mira raised her knife, but then Kale collapsed. The blood from his leg wound was spreading fast. His eyes rolled back. He was going to die. Mira stood there, breathing hard. Her enemy, dying. She could let him go. No one would blame her, but something inside her changed. She ran. To him. Kale was still alive, but barely. His leg had a deep cut. Blood was pouring out. Mira tried to stop it with cloth from her uniform, but it wasn't enough. She looked around for help. Nothing. Then her eyes fell on a cactus-like plant growing nearby. Long green stems with sharp black thorns. An idea. A crazy one. She took a deep breath, then pulled out a long strand of her own hair. She tied it into a thin string. Then, with shaking hands, she broke off a cactus thorn, sharp as a needle. She began to stitch his wound. Her hair became the thread. The thorn. The needle. Kale groaned in pain, but he was unconscious. The work was slow. Her hand shook. Her fingers bled from the cactus. But she kept going. She sewed her enemy's wound, and then she wrapped his leg tight with cloth. The bleeding stopped. She fell back, breathing hard. Her own arm still bled. Her head was light. But Kale was alive. Why? Why did I do that? She whispered. As night began to fall, Mira dragged Kale to the shadow of a rock. The wind grew colder. Strange sounds echoed from the distance, howling like wolves, but deeper. Not human. Something was out there. Mira sharpened a stick, ready to defend them if she had to. Then. Kale opened his eyes. He blinked, looked down at his leg, touched the stitches. Saw her hair in the wound. You. Help me? He asked, voice rough. Mira didn't look at him. You were dying. I'm your enemy, he said. She stared into the distance. I know. Why? She looked at him now. Because you would have died. And I'm not like you. Kale was silent. Then they both heard it, a growl. Mira stood quickly, holding the stick like a spear. From behind the rocks, 2 glowing eyes appeared. A creature stepped forward, tall, thin, with black skin and razor teeth. Not from any species Mira had seen before. It growled again. 2 more appeared behind it. Mira stood between them and Kale, her hands shaking, but she didn't move back. Kale sat up slowly, still weak, but watching her. You're protecting me now? He asked. She didn't answer. The creatures stepped closer. Mira raised the stick. The night was cold, and the growling sounds came closer. Mira stood with a sharpened stick in her hands, her legs tense, her eyes locked on the creatures that stepped out from the shadows. Their skin was black like stone, and their long limbs moved like spiders. They circled her slowly, their teeth shining under the two moons above. Behind her, Cale sat with his back against the rock, still too weak to fight. He watched the human woman stand between him and death. This soldier, this enemy, had sewn his leg with her own hair. Now she was ready to die for him. The creatures snarled and charged. Mira screamed and stabbed the first one in the neck. The stick broke, but it was enough. The creature fell, twitching. The others jumped back, hissing. She grabbed a rock and threw it at the second. It hit the eye, and the beast screamed in pain. Cale, using all his strength, reached for a sharp piece of ship metal and dragged himself forward. The third creature lunged. Cale shouted and threw the metal like a knife. It struck the creature in the chest. It let out a final cry and collapsed beside Mira. Silence returned. Only the sound of wind and Mira's heavy breathing remained. Her hands were shaking, her knees weak, but they were alive. Mira sat down hard on the sand. Her hair was wild and her face was pale. Cale looked at her for a long moment. "You fought like one of us," he said. Mira gave a weak smile. "I fight like a human." They didn't talk much after that. The cold was getting worse. Mira checked Cale's wound. It had stopped bleeding, but he still needed rest. She collected pieces from the broken ships and started a small fire using wires and dry plant fibers. The warm light gave them both a little comfort. As the fire crackled, Cale stared at the flames. "You could have left me." "I know," she said, without looking at him. "I would have." Mira nodded. "I believe that." Cale didn't answer. Something about her calm voice made him feel strange, not weak, but confused. Humans were supposed to be soft, cowards, yet this one had saved his life twice. The night passed slowly. Mira didn't sleep. She watched the fire and listened for more sounds. Cale slept lightly, always half awake, his body alert even in pain. By morning, the wind had changed. It smelled dry, sharp, like dust and metal. Mira stood and scanned the horizon. The desert stretched endlessly in every direction, but to the west she saw something, a dark line of rocks and hills. "Maybe a cave. Maybe shelter. We need to move," she told Cale. Cale tried to stand but almost collapsed. Mira caught him, holding his arm over her shoulder. "You shouldn't be helping me," he said through clenched teeth. "You shouldn't be alive," she replied. "Let's go." They moved slowly, step by step. The sun was already hot. Sand stuck to their skin. Mira's arm ached, and Cale's limp grew worse. Still, they walked out. After hours of struggling across the red sand, they reached the rocks. There, hidden behind a fallen stone wall, they found a narrow cave, deep, cool, and dark. Mira helped Cale inside and made him sit. She checked his stitches again. "Still holding," she whispered. Cale looked at her hands, bruised, scratched, dirty. "Why do you care?" he asked. She paused, then said, "Because I was trained to protect life, even enemy life, if I can. And maybe because I'm tired of all this killing." Cale didn't speak. He looked at the ceiling of the cave, where tiny insects glowed in the dark. His thoughts were full of questions he didn't know how to ask. Mira built another small fire. They had no food, only some emergency rations from her gear, dry protein blocks, and a water pouch. She gave half to Cale. As he ate, Cale watched her. He was used to humans begging for mercy, not sharing food, not giving warmth, not risking their lives for others. "You lost someone," he said quietly, "in this war." Mira froze for a second. Then she nodded. "My brother, last year, Zurian ambush. He was 19. Cale lowered his eyes. "I've killed humans, Too many. They sat in silence. No hate. Just the quiet truth between two survivors, outside. The wind howled again. Mira threw more sticks into the fire and leaned back against the cave wall. "We're stuck here for a while," she said. "If we want to live, we help each other. Deal?" Cale looked at her outstretched hand. Then slowly he shook it. "Deal," he said. In that moment, the war between their species meant nothing. Now it was just one human, one alien, and one promise. Days passed in the cave. Mira and Cale stayed alive, barely. The desert outside was a silent enemy, always watching. The sun was cruel in the day, and the cold was sharper than a blade at night. They had fire, shelter, and a few supplies. But now the rations were almost gone. Mira counted the last protein block, broke it in half, and handed a piece to Cale. "This is it," she said. Cale took it silently. His skin was pale, the wound on his leg healing, but slow. "We need food," he said. She nodded. "We'll hunt tomorrow, together." Cale's eyebrow rose. "You hunt?" "I survive," she said simply. The next morning, Mira wrapped her arm with cloth, tied her hair back, and stepped outside. The desert wind was dry and full of dust. She held a spear she had made from metal and wood scraps. Cale followed, leaning on a long stick for support. The land stretched like a graveyard. Rocks, sand, bones. No birds, no shade. But Mira had seen tracks near the cave. Light footprints, almost like a deer, but sharper, with claws. She knelt near a trail and touched the ground. "Something walked through here last night." Cale examined the prints. 3 legs, desert stalker. Fast but weak alone. Then, "We catch it before it finds a pack," Mira said. They followed the tracks in silence, working together without needing many words. Mira noticed how Cale's eyes scanned the area like a trained hunter. His people were born to fight, raised in wild worlds. She was learning to see through his eyes. Danger, movement, cover. Hours passed. Finally, near a cluster of tall rocks, they saw it. A desert stalker, thin body, green skin, long legs, eyes like black glass. It was sniffing at dry roots, unaware of them. Mira moved quietly, positioning herself on one side. Cale circled wide, limping but fast. They were hunters now. No war, no sides. Just 2 survivors. Mira whistled softly. The stalker's head snapped toward her. It hissed and charged. Cale appeared behind it, shouting. The beast turned, confused. That's when Mira threw the spear. It struck the stalker in the neck. The creature screamed and thrashed, but the blow was deep. Blood spilled into the sand. They waited, breath held. Then, silence. Cale stepped forward and checked it. Dead. Mira sighed in relief and dropped to her knees. "We eat tonight." They dragged the creature back to the cave and prepared the meat. Mira cooked while Cale watched her work with care and calmness. She removed the poison glands first, then cut clean slices of muscle. The smell of hot food filled the cave, sharp, wild, but warm. As they ate, Cale studied her. "You're not just a soldier," he said. "You think like a survivor, like us?" Mira chewed slowly. "I've had to learn. War doesn't care." "What you were before," he nodded. "What were you before?" She smiled faintly. "Just a girl who liked the stars. I wanted to be a pilot. Then my brother died, and I picked up a gun." Cale was quiet for a long time. "On my planet, we are born fighters, but we are not born cruel. War made us that way?" "Same here," she whispered. They sat in silence again, watching the fire. Outside, the stars filled the sky like cold diamonds. Later that night, Mira went outside to get more wood. She moved carefully, but her eyes were tired. She didn't hear the sound behind her, A low growl. She turned. Too late. A second stalker, larger, angrier, leapt from behind the rocks. It knocked her down, claws tearing at her jacket. She screamed. Cale heard her cry and ran, ignoring the pain in his leg. He saw her pinned under the beast, struggling, the spear out of reach. With a roar, Cale tackled the creature. He used the broken metal blade again, stabbing the beast in the side. It howled and threw him back. Mira grabbed the spear and struck. The final blow. The creature fell. Blood soaked the sand. Cale lay still, breathing heavily, a new cut on his chest. Mira rushed to him. "Why did you come?" she asked, holding his head up. "You saved me first," he said. "It was only fair." Mira looked down at him. She realized something had changed. They were no longer enemies. They were more than survivors now. They were a team. Back in the cave, she cleaned his new wound and wrapped it carefully. He didn't flinch. "Next time," she said, "we bring the spear every time." He smiled. "Next time, I let you go alone." She laughed. Quietly, Piquet felt warmer than before. That night, they both slept, for the first time in days, without fear. The days blurred together. Mira and Cale had created a kind of rhythm, not quite friendship, not quite alliance. In the brutal quiet of the desert, they cooked together, watched each other's backs, and learned to trust without words. They rarely spoke of the war. Out here, it seemed far away, but war never stays far for long. On the seventh morning, Mira was digging through the wreckage of her ship, searching for anything useful. The sun was already high, burning her skin. Sand stung her face as the wind picked up. Then, under a metal panel, she found it. Her emergency communicator. It was cracked, the outer screen half melted, but the core looked intact. Her breath caught. She grabbed it and ran back toward the cave, her boots kicking up clouds of dust. Cale was inside, sharpening a bone knife. When he saw the device in her hands, he stood slowly. "You found something." Mira sat down and wiped the sweat from her face. "If I can fix this, I can send a distress signal. Maybe someone will hear it." "Your people?" "Yes." Cale looked at the communicator with an unreadable expression. "How long will it take?" "I don't know. It's damaged. Could be hours, could be days." He didn't answer. Just nodded and walked to the back of the cave. That night, while Mira was asleep, Cale quietly stepped outside with the communicator. The moons lit his face, revealing a heavy mix of guilt and duty. He tapped a sequence on the side, a hidden function, known only to Zorian soldiers. The communicator blinked once, then glowed blue. He spoke a short message in his native tongue. Unit K-17, alive. Coordinates attached. Human survivor present. Extraction required. He ended the message and turned off the device. For a long time, he stood under the stars, silent. The next morning, Mira noticed the communicator had moved. "Did you touch this?" she asked Cale. He looked away. "Just checking it." Mira narrowed her eyes but said nothing. 2 days passed. The communicator stayed silent. No signal, no answer. Mira worked tirelessly, repairing wires with tiny tools, hands covered in grease. Cale helped quietly, his guilt growing heavier each time he looked at her. On the third night, Mira finally got a signal pulse. A soft green light blinked. "We're online," she whispered. "Someone might find us now." Cale didn't look happy. "And what happens when they do?" She glanced at him. "We go home, we survive. And then what? Do we go back to war? Do we tell them we fought, then fed each other? That we saved each other's lives?" Mira didn't answer. The silence between them grew thick. Later that night, as they sat near the fire, Cale finally spoke. "I sent a signal too." Mira looked up sharply. "What?" "2 nights ago." I used your communicator to contact my people. Her body tensed. You lied to me? I didn't lie. I just ... Didn't tell you. She stood up. You gave them our location. They'll come for me. And what do you think they'll do when they see me? Kale didn't respond. Myra stepped away from the fire, her fist tight. I trusted you. I stitched your wound with my own hair. I stood between you and monsters. And you, I didn't plan to betray you, Kale said, standing now too. I just ... I thought I was doing the right thing. For my people, for the war. Her voice was cold. You think this war still matters out here? I don't. Know what matters anymore, Kale said, his voice low. Accept this. I don't want them to hurt you. She laughed once, bitter. You think that makes it better? The fire cracked between them. Mira turned and walked to the cave's entrance. The wind had picked up again. Sand swirled in the air. Kale watched her go. He felt hollow inside. That night, neither of them slept. At dawn, a sound broke the silence. A low hum, steady and deep. Mechanical. Mira ran outside. In the sky, a dark shadow moved across the clouds. A ship, not human. Kale followed slowly, limping, his eyes locked on the symbol painted on the side, the Zurian crest. A warship. They're here, he said quietly. Mira didn't speak. As the ship began to descend, dust storming around them, Kale looked at her one last time. I'll talk to them. I'll tell them to leave you alone. Mira's face was unreadable. And what makes you think they'll listen? Kale didn't answer, because he wasn't sure. The ramp opened. Zurian soldiers in full armor marched out. They raised their weapons, locking onto Mira. Kale stepped in front of her. Stand down. He shouted. The soldiers froze. Their leader, a tall Zurian with golden armor, stepped forward. Kale, you survived. She helped me survive, Kale said. She is under my protection. The leader narrowed his eyes. A human? Protected. By you? Mira didn't move. Her hand hovered near her knife. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. The Zurian soldiers stood still, their weapons pointed at Mira. Wind howled across the desert, carrying the bitter scent of sand and smoke. Mira didn't blink. Her fingers rested near her knife, but she didn't draw it. Kale stood between her and the guns, shoulders straight, ignoring the pain in his leg. She saved me, he said again. She's not an enemy. She's a soldier, yes, but she showed honor. The golden-armored commander took a step closer. His voice was cold. You forget your duty, Kale. We are still at war. This human is not your concern. She is, Kale replied. She was my enemy. But now she is the reason I'm alive. The silence stretched long and heavy. Finally, the commander lowered his weapon. Very well. You will both come with us. But if she makes one wrong move, I will end her myself. Mira nodded, her jaw tight. Then I won't give you a reason. They boarded the ship, and it rose from the desert floor with a loud roar. Mira sat near a window, looking out at the land she had learned to survive in. The place that had turned her enemy into something human. But the safety was short-lived, minutes. Into the flight, the ship shook violently. Lights flickered. Alarms screamed. The pilot shouted something in Zurian language. Mira looked at Kale and he immediately understood. A storm, he said. A massive one. Energy and sand. We're flying straight into it. The commander barked. Orders. The ship turned sharply, but it was too late. A wall of red dust slammed into them like a fist. Electricity danced across the sky. The engines whined and the ship dropped fast. Brace for impact. Someone yelled. The ship hit the ground hard, sliding across the desert and crashing into a cliffside. Metal screamed. Sparks flew. When it finally stopped, Half the ship was buried in the sand. Silence. Then the moans of injured soldiers. Mira pulled herself up, blood running from her forehead. Smoke filled the cabin. She crawled toward Cale, who was pinned under a metal panel. With effort, she lifted it just enough for him to slide free. "You good?" she asked, coughing. "Alive," he said. "Barely." They helped others, dragging bodies out into the open air before the back half of the ship caught fire. The storm still raged above them, red lightning and flying sand turning the sky into chaos. The commander limped over, clutching his arm. "The ship's comms are dead. We won't get rescued in this storm. We need shelter." Mira looked toward the rocks nearby. "There's a cave system west of here. I've been in it." The commander stared at her. "You expect me to follow a human?" Cale stepped between them again. "You will, if you want your men to live." Grudgingly, the commander nodded. "Lead the way." Mira took point. Cale followed beside her. The other soldiers came after, limping, bleeding, afraid. The storm roared like a beast behind them. Sand whipped their faces. Visibility was low. Every step was a struggle. Mira could barely see, but she remembered the path. Each rock, each turn. The storm howled louder, and the ground trembled beneath their feet. The soldiers began to panic. One of them, younger, scared, broke away from the group. "Wait!" Cale shouted. Too late. A bolt of red lightning struck the sand near him, and the ground collapsed. He screamed as he fell into a hidden sinkhole. Without thinking, Mira ran to the edge and jumped down after him. "Human!" the commander shouted. Furious. Inside the pit, Mira landed hard beside the young Zurian soldier. His leg was twisted, and he was crying in pain. She knelt beside him. "It's okay. I've got you." She tore a strip from her sleeve and tied it around his leg, making a splint with a broken bone fragment. Then she looked up at the edge of the hole. Cale appeared there, rope in hand. He threw it down. "Grab on." Mira tied it around the young soldier and shouted, "Pull!" Cale and two others pulled hard, lifting the boy out. Then Mira grabbed the rope herself. As she climbed, the storm's wind grew stronger, almost pulling her back down. Her hand slipped. Cale reached down. "There." Eyes met. "Take my hand." She leapt, just enough for him to catch her wrist. With a final pull, he dragged her up onto the rock, both of them falling into the sand, breathing hard. The commander looked at his rescued soldier, then at Mira. "You risked your life for him," he said. Mira stood. "We're not at war in that hole. Down there, we're just people trying to live." The commander didn't respond, but he didn't argue either. They made it to the cave just as the worst of the storm hit. Inside, they huddled close, listening to the world roar outside. Mira sat beside Cale, arms wrapped around her knees. He looked at her. "You didn't have to go back." "I did," she said. "Because it's what humans do," Cale nodded. "Maybe. It's what we all should do." Outside, the storm screamed. But inside, something quieter began to grow. Not peace yet, but maybe the beginning of it. The storm lasted for 2 days. Inside the cave, Mira and the surviving Zurian soldiers waited in silence. Sand piled up at the entrance. The air grew dry and thin. Water ran low. Food was already gone. Mira could feel the pressure building, not just outside, but between them all. The Zurians did not speak to her much. Some watched her with cold eyes. Others avoided her entirely, but no one attacked. They followed Cale's lead, and Cale stood beside Mira. They shared a fire again. Shared silence. Late into the second night, Mira sat against the wall, her back aching, her eyes scanning the damaged communicator in her lap. She had been trying to repair it again, now more for both of them. If they didn't call for help, soon they would all die in this cave. Cale sat beside her. He looked tired, his skin pale, his old wound aching from the storm's cold air. "You really think it'll work?" he asked softly. Mira shrugged. "I don't know. But it's better than waiting to die." Kale stared at the broken device. "I used to think humans were weak because they cared too much. I was wrong." She gave a small smile. "And I used to think Zurians were monsters. Maybe I was wrong too." Their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them, a quiet understanding. Not love, not yet, but something deeper than survival. A shared truth. That same night, Mira finally got a faint signal again. The communicator blinked green. A nearby human outpost, unarmed and medical only, picked up the emergency beacon. "I did it," she whispered. "They'll come." She looked at Kale, expecting relief. But something changed in his face. His eyes narrowed. His shoulders tensed. "What outpost?" he asked. "Medical camp, unarmed. They help crash survivors. About 50 kilometers from here." Kale stood slowly. His jaw tightened. "Something wrong?" she asked. He didn't answer. He walked to the far corner of the cave where the Zurian commander was sitting. They whispered for a long time. Mira watched them, her heart starting to race. She couldn't hear the words, but she saw the looks. The commander nodded. Soldiers began checking their weapons. Mira stood. "What are you planning?" Kale turned to her. His face was unreadable. "That outpost, it's in contested territory. If your people rescue you first, they'll report we're alive. They'll mark our location. So, my commander sees it as a threat." Mira's voice dropped. "You're going to attack a medical outpost?" Kale didn't speak. Her hands clenched. "They're unarmed. There are children there. Wounded people. This isn't war, Kale. It's murder." The commander stepped forward. "This is survival. If your people find us before we strike, we lose the element of surprise. We're already weak. That outpost is a target now." Mira turned to Kale, her voice shaking. "You're not going to let this happen. Tell them no." Kale looked down. "I can't stop them. You won't even try?" She whispered. He met her eyes. "I already disobeyed once. They won't listen to me again." Mira stepped back. The trust between them cracked, splintering like glass. "Then we're done," she said quietly. "If I have to, I'll stop them myself." She turned to leave, but the commander raised his weapon. "You'll stay here, human." Kale stepped between them again, just like before. "No," he said. "She goes." The commander's voice turned sharp. "Move, Kale." Kale didn't move. A tense moment passed. Then Mira ran fast, grabbing the communicator and diving through the narrow exit before anyone could react. Gunfire followed, but missed her in the darkness. She ran through the sandstorm's remains. Coughing, stumbling, bleeding from her arm, she didn't stop. She had to reach the outpost first. She had to warn them. Behind her, Kale stood alone. The commander turned to him. "You just betrayed your own kind." Kale looked out at the desert where she had vanished. "No," he said softly. "I just remembered what kind should mean." 6 hours later, Mira reached the outpost. Her body was weak. Her voice cracked as she shouted to the guards. Medics rushed out and pulled her inside. She collapsed but managed to say one thing before passing out. "They're coming." The next morning, the Zurian attack began. But Kale wasn't with them. Instead, he appeared from the opposite ridge, unarmed, and stood between the advancing soldiers and the outpost gates. "I won't let you do this," he said. The commander raised his weapon. "You would die for them?" Kale didn't blink. "I would die to stop you." The soldiers paused, confused. Torn. Then the commander fired. A single shot hit Kale in the chest. He fell. Mira, watching from inside, screamed. But Kale didn't die. The tail armor he wore, Mira's makeshift repairs, cactus threaded and cloth patched, had stopped the shot just enough. Wounded, bleeding, he crawled forward. Mira ran to him again, just like before. Cale lay in the sand, blood soaking through the patchwork armor Mira had repaired. Around him, the wind howled, and dust rose like smoke from the battlefield. The shot had knocked the breath from his chest, but his heart still beat, weak. But steady. Mira reached him first. She fell to her knees, pressed her hands against the wound. Her voice trembled. "Stay with me, Cale. Don't you dare die now." Cale opened his eyes slowly. His voice was faint but clear. "You ran for them." "I ran for all of us," she said, teeth clenched. "Even you." Behind them, the Zurian soldiers hesitated. Their leader, the commander in gold armor, stared in disbelief. His best soldier, once proud, now lay bleeding at the feet of a human. Not fighting. Not killing. Protecting. One of the younger Zurian soldiers lowered his weapon. Then another. The commander raised his gun again. "Traitors, all of you." Mira stood between him and Cale. Again. Always. "You still don't get it, do you?" She shouted. "You think strength comes from control, from fear, but it doesn't," the commander sneered. "And what does it come from? Mercy? Compassion?" "Yes," Mira said. "And from the courage to choose peace, even when you're trained for war." Behind her, Cale slowly sat up, blood still leaking from the side of his armor. "She saved me when she didn't have. Tia, twice. That's strength." The commander looked at his own soldiers. They didn't move. None followed his lead. He was alone now, and he knew it. With a wordless growl, he turned and fled into the dust. No one followed him. Silence fell across the field. Then Mira turned to Cale. "We need to get you inside now." Together, with the help of the human medics and 2 Zurian soldiers, they carried Cale into the medical outpost. Doctors worked fast, patching the wound, replacing the cactus thread stitches with real tools. Mira stayed beside him the entire time. Outside, the soldiers, human and Zurian, stood in an uneasy circle. Enemies by war, unsure what to do now. Inside, Cale woke hours later. His voice was dry. "Am I alive?" Mira smiled. "Barely. But you'll make it. Again." He chuckled weakly. "Because of you." She sat back, arms crossed. "Seems to be a pattern." The next day, news spread across both networks, Zurian and human. Footage from the outpost showed Mira standing in front of the soldiers. It showed Cale taking a bullet to stop his own commander. It showed Zurians and humans working side by side to save one of their own. The video went viral. People across both species watched it again and again, and something began to shift. On a distant Zurian warship, a general paused the launch of a new attack. In a human command center, an admiral ordered a ceasefire notice for review. Hope crept into places it had never reached before. Mira and Admin Cale were moved to a neutral medical station, the first one to accept both species under the same roof. For weeks, they healed. Sometimes they talked. Sometimes they argued, but mostly they laughed. There were still scars, still bad memories. But something better had taken root between them, trust, and something deeper. One morning, as Mira sat watching the sunrise from the rooftop, Cale limped up beside her. His leg was still weak, but he walked now without help. "You still looking at the stars?" he asked. "Always," she said. He sat beside her. "What happens now?" She took a breath. "They're calling it a peace summit. Small, quiet, just talk. But it's a start. They want us to speak." Cale raised an eyebrow. "Us?" Myra nodded. "You and me. The soldier who tore her hair to save a stranger. And the alien who nearly died protecting her, he looked out at the sun. Strange story. Yeah, she said with a small smile. But true. They sat in silence for a long moment, the wind soft now. No sandstorms, no gunfire. Just peace. Finally, Cale turned to her. When they ask why I changed, what should I say? Mara looked at him, her voice low and honest. Tell them I didn't change you. You changed yourself. I just gave you a reason, he smiled. That'll work. She stood and offered her hand, the same hand that once held a spear, then a thread, then his life. He took it, and they walked forward, together.